Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed in this video are those of my own and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any other person or group of people. They do not purport to reflect the opinions or views of any group of people, person, or fanbase or its members. This video and the presentation of material therein do not imply the expression of any opinion other than mine.
This video contains spoilers for Frank Herbert's Dune and the 1984 David Lynch Dune movie.
Hello, and welcome to this deep dive, not really deep dive, just kind of my views, thoughts, and opinions on David Lynch's 1984 interpretation of Frank Herbert's Dune. This is a movie. Yes, it's a movie. But when it came out in 84, it tanked at the box office. And it tanked big. Part of that was due to David Lynch not being a big fan of science fiction to start with. Second of all, had never read Dune or any of the follow-up books to Dune, and studio interference. The movie in and of itself is a good movie. David Lynch, being an abstract type director, brought you such movies such as Eraserhead. Took his strengths, being abstract, kind of being a Salvador Dali of film, and his interpretation of the screenplay that he was given. So yeah, and at the time that movie came out, I was 14 years old. And fairly scientific literate. Science fiction, not scientific, science fiction literate. I had been reading Heinlein, Asimov, Philip K. Dick. So, at 14 years old, my initial interpretation of the movie was, it looked good but sucked. And at that age, I was what you'd call a purist. I felt that if you translate a book, comic, into a film, this also includes audio, stage plays, radio drama, stuff like that. If you convert them into film, that it should be a beat for beat for beat translation. As I got older and matured, I realized that that is just bad, because there are things that work on the written page that just simply do not translate well into film. Um, so, like I said, as I grew up and matured, sometime in my early 30s is when I started to realize that you can't do that. Things like that don't work necessarily in a film format. Plus, writers who write, say, science fiction writers, such as Frank Herbert, he's writing for a ready-made specific audience. He doesn't care about the people that like fantasy or horror or mystery. He's writing where his strengths are. He's writing for that audience. Whereas a movie studio wants to get as much of that sweet, sweet money as they can. So they have to simplify a lot of complex ideas. They have to distill them down into something that the masses can stomach. Frank Herbert's Dune, you can do probably a 6 or 7 hour movie out of each chapter of that book, because it is dense. It is rich with lore. It's rich with background. It's rich with history. And to take that movie and make it into something a studio feels comfortable with is exceptionally hard. The flop of that movie kind of, in a lot of ways, made it possible for other translations. The 2000 miniseries and the 2003 miniseries that basically mushed together Dune Messiah and Children of Dune. The Lynch's movie laid the foundation for that, because you had a blueprint of what didn't work. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that the David Lynch Dune has grown an occult following, a midnight feature type collective, kind of this fan base that the people are able to rally around the movie, to enjoy the movie for what it is. Overall, it is not a bad movie. As I've grown to like it. Like I said earlier, when I was 14, I hated it. But at 54, not a bad little movie. There's on the internet, and I'll put links in the bottom below, in the description down there, where people have went and taken DVD, Blu-ray versions, taking the deleted scenes that were added on in those releases, and re-edited them back into the movie, giving you a better idea of what Lynch wanted to do with the story. There's a great cast. You've got Dean Stockwell, who is probably one of the pioneering science fiction actors of the 20th century, as Dr. Huey, yeah. And you've got Kyle MacLachlan in the titular role of Paul Atreides. And you've got Patrick Jean-Luc Picard Stewart as Gurney Halleck. And that just, you've also got Sean Young as Chani, or Chaney. I prefer the Chani pronunciation, though I use them interchangeably. So throughout these videos, when I do the 2000 miniseries and the most recent movies, I will pronounce them both ways, Chani and Chaney. Sean Young, best known for her portrayal of Rachel from Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. Like I said, the casting was there. The visuals are surreal. Out of this world. David Lynch had a thing for bulldogs for some reason. I don't know why. It was just David Lynch, I guess. And there's a scene, and I'll throw a clip in later when we get deeper into the movie, where Patrick Stewart is leading the men into battle, carrying the ducal pug. It's one of those scenes that in 1984 you're like, what the fuck? And now in 2024 you're like, hey, he's got a bug. So it's just, that movie's grown. Now, before we go any further, I have to touch on Jodorowsky's Dune. Alejandro Jodorowsky in the 70s tried to do Dune. However, his vision far exceeded the studio's budget. Salvador Dali had agreed to play the Padishah Emperor for the trivial sum of $1,000 an hour. And in 1970s money, that's a lot of money. I don't know what the equivalent in 2024 would be, but I believe there's somebody out there who could figure it out. And if you do take it upon yourself to figure it out, put it in the comments below. I'd like to know that, but I don't want to know it enough to actually do the research on it. It's just, but H.R. Geiger was doing the visuals, and some of the visuals from Jodorowsky, I can't talk, they show up in Lynch's movie on Harkonnen, the Gidi Prime, the Harkonnen home planet. I almost said hand planet, but and this is just some of those things that are just, you're like, wow, that's kind of cool. Frank Herbert. Now, Frank Herbert is a very complex individual. He was a dyed-in-the-wool Republican, anti-communist, and related to Senator Joseph McCarthy. I don't remember the exact relationship that Herbert had to McCarthy, but he always referred to him as Uncle Joe. I have read and seen different people talk about Herbert either supported the Red Scare thing that McCarthy that he did, that was done, the whole blacklist, I've read and seen other things where they say he opposed it. I have yet to find anything from Herbert himself on either way. So it's, six one way, half dozen the other. You believe what you choose to believe. Or maybe you can have better luck finding out for yourself whether or not Herbert supported the whole Red Scare thing or not. Just gives you some, I mean, it may pique your interest. It may be something you want to find out. Also, Herbert was an uncompromising environmentalist. Yes. He was also a dedicated user of psychedelic mushrooms. I don't know. I can't find any references or anything discussing whether or not he smoked marijuana or did LSD or ketamine or ayahuasca or any of those other drugs. What I have found, the only thing that I have found that is concrete is his use and his growing and cultivation of the psilocybin cubensis mushrooms. Don't know how regularly he used them. Don't know doses. But his son, Brian, there's numbers and just countless interviews on YouTube. Search for him if you want to. That states that Herbert did consume them on a regular basis. We don't know if it was once a month, once a week, bi-monthly. That has, to the best of my research, have never found that what kind of the specifics of his drug use. The book came out in 1965. It was first published by Chilton Automotive Manuals. Yeah, that is a rabbit hole unto itself. And when I do the video contrasting all the film media with the book, we'll get deeper into that. But an automotive repair manual company first published Dune. So yeah. Now, getting back into David Lynch's vision. It is very 80s. It is. If you were a teenager or a young adult in the 80s, it is easier for the grasp to look at it and go, yeah, that is a very 80s, that is a very 80s aesthetic. And then when you throw in the surrealism and the avant-garde twist to it, you get this very interesting gathering. And it's just awesome. His portrayal of the guild steersman, yeah, that's those. We could have done without those. Any creature that has a vagina for a mouth just kind of weirds me out a little bit. His portrayal of the Bene Gesserit with the over-the-top hats and headgear and bald heads didn't really set with me well. Still kind of one of those things, kind of a burr under my saddle. His portrayal of Alia, Paul's younger sister, is interesting. Mind you, she's 2 years old. She murders the Baron. Then there's kind of a scene that kind of leans to what happened. But in the Fremen society, after a major battle like that, the kids were sent out and dispatched the wounded and crippled and hurt enemies. That they sent the kids out to do that, and that's just what the Fremen do. And Alia is 2 years old, and she's out partaking. She's having fun. Where she gets the moniker of Alia of the Knife, and later becomes Saint Alia of the Knife. Alia is a character that is really hard to portray well on light, and Lynch is portrayal of that is, for 1984, yes, that was the way he did it was good. I personally don't think America as a whole is ready for a 2-year-old murder baby. Just not, we're not there yet. The book starts in 10-191 and ends in 10-193. The montage in the movie, the montage of the Fremen taking out the Harkonnens during this 2-year time jump, is they recycle a lot of the same footage, which I, maybe correctly or incorrectly, I equate to budget restraints and studio interference. The portrayal of Baron Harkonnen is very, very David Lynch. The Beast Roban, Piter de Brise, Fade, are all those portrayals. However you want to argue, well, they're not the book. They're more gallows humor type characters. And you're right. You'd be right. Lynch turned these very dark, very morose, rapists, pedophiles, pederasts, murderers into kind of a gallows humor thing. And that's another thing I don't think we in America are ready for. We're not ready for that kind of portrayal. We're not ready for that, this portrayal accurate to the book. This portrayal of these just inhuman, monstrous people, just the ruler of this planet, just these sick, murderous, depraved perverts. It's just really something I don't think, if you were to translate that into the books or into film, you would be probably risking a X rating at that point. So yeah, they are some sick individuals. And the Atreides, on the other hand, in these movies, we get this ideal that the Atreides are the good guys. And this is one of the things I have to put against the David Lynch movie or subtract from its overall thing. They weren't. The Atreides were like any other feudal kingdom within it, an empire, and a lot of Dune is basically medieval feudalism in space, with some colonialism mixed into it for fun. And the like I said, there are concepts that most people in mass, the mass of the American people, I can't speak for people in other countries, I can't speak for everybody in America, just my opinion that if Lynch or any director of any interpretation of this book tried to put that in to the movie as it is written on the page, you're going to mess up a whole lot of people. Lawyers should be in your business. Accountants will be in your business. The motion picture industry would probably be off in your business. It's kind of like if you were to try to do the orgy scene from It in film. You know, a bunch of 11, 12-year-old kids having sex, with one girl in a sewer. Yeah, Stephen King kind of jumped the shark on that one. But there is a parallel to the way the Harkonnens are written in the book. And it's just insane. And Lynch, his interpretation is, I think, for a 1984 audience, I think he did a pretty good job. With the stuff all over, the pussiness and all that kind of craziness on the Baron's face, the flying around and bathing in blood. Yeah, that's just David Lynch, though. But for as extreme as they are in the novel, I mean, even by the standards of 1984, and we were a lot more puritanical then than we are now, that would not come across well on screen. It's just not going to happen very well. He hits all the high points of the plot, the central plot of Paul Atreides. Lynch hits all of those beats very well. But it's this surrealistic, it's just this thing. It's one of those ones where if you haven't seen it and you like science fiction and want to see the first time that Dune made it from the page to a movie theater, this is, and let me stop for a second. If you want to see how this novel in a film format evolved, I would highly recommend watching Lynch's version, the science fiction the Science Fiction Channel, 2000 Dune, and 2003 Children of Dune, and the latest movies, the Villeneuve movies. But read the book before you start the movies, then reread the book after you finish the movies. So you've gotten both sides. So, encap it with the book. And you'll find that all of these interpretations of Dune are relatively accurate to a believable point for the time in which they were made and the mores and the acceptance, what's accepted in stuff at the time these interpretations were made. It's we kind of get to look back at ourselves as an audience through these movies. Just on a side note, David Lynch George Lucas offered him the directorship for Return of the Jedi, and David Lynch turned it down to do Dune, because David Lynch is an intelligent man. If you've watched any of this man's movies, you know he's a very intelligent man. He was intelligent to understand that his views, and not being a science fiction fan, would hurt what George Lucas had built up with the original Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. Which you have to give credit to Lynch for this, which shows that not only did Lucas not understand what Lynch would have done, Lynch understands what Lynch would have done. So yeah, it's just one of those things. I want to share real quick with you some footage from the David Lynch movie, which is kind of cool. I think it's kind of foreshadowing. It is a scene, the hunter-seeker scene. When the hunter-seeker first comes into Paul Atreides' bedroom, and it's kind of looking for him, and it's going over top of Paul's bed, and the sheets on the bed, or the bed linens, sheets, blankets, whatever, are all about the same color of the sand, and you get the shadow of the hunter-seeker going over the folds and ripples of these sand-colored bed linens. And it's kind of foreshadowing the worms. So let's watch that real quick and let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. That particular scene, I just like the foreshadowing of it, of the dark over top of the worm kind of shape going over the sand-colored bed linens is kind of cool. This next clip I want to share with you is from Patrick Stewart's character charging the battle with the ducal pug. It's just kind of funny. It's just one of those parts of the movie that it's just, at this point in my life, it's just kind of cool. It's humorous. you know, David Lynch. See, for me, that scene kind of has it's foreshadowing. It's just, you've got the cylindrical thing, you've got the sand. It's just one of those things that I find to be absolutely wonderful in how Lynch did this, how he put this together. There are scenes like that all throughout the movie. That just happens to be my favorite of them all. You also, one of the things that I've seen comment online and people I've talked to about the movie is the fact that you have the technology to travel through space. You have the technology to terraform. You have technology to do all these wonderful things. But everybody fights with knives and swords and stuff like that. And without getting too deep into the mythos and the stuff of that, it's because at one point human beings became so dependent, so reliant on machines, artificial intelligence, robots, that they basically become slaves to their own creations. You know, living in a gilded cage is still living in a cage type thing. Then you had what is called the Butlerian Jihad, which is basically when humans rebelled against the machines, destroyed the thinking machines, and or drove them off out of their particular corner of the universe. And they come back in Chapter House Dune, but I doubt we'll ever see anything past Children of Dune. Maybe God Emperor Dune we might see on film, but I think like Heretics and Chapter House, Herbert's, well, even in Children of Dune, his frequent use of psychedelic mushrooms start to become more and more and more infused with the story. They're good stories, good solid storytelling. However, they're weird as crap, and they take a while. I'm talking years. Like I said, I've been reading the Dune books since I was about 13, 14 years old. And there are parts now in the series of the books that I'm just now being able to wrap my brain around. So yeah, it takes a minute. But overall, I would say David Lynch did a phenomenal stand-up job for 1984. Most of the effects are practical effects. One of the things that I love about the movie is on Geedy Prime in Lynch's thing, they had set up everything to be green screen. You know, but they made the decision to leave the green and blue for the green screen, the blue screen, just leave it in there. Don't touch it. Just have these bare green walls, very plain, very, and you juxtapose that off to the mutilated servants, the abominations that Lynch put into this movie, and it works for some reason. It works. Well, like I said, and I will probably say this over and over again, is for me at 14, this movie sucked. However, watching it, and for so many years, from 1984 to 2000, that was the only visualization of Dune that we had. So either you just pushed it out and discarded it and was a true loyalist to the books, or you found ways to watch it, to enjoy it, to let it grow on you, kind of like mold or moss. And you start with maturity and life experience. It starts to come out, and it's very much a unique take of the movie. Lynch does follow the book, especially in the extended, the re-edited fan edits. There is a lot of plot points that Lynch did, and did well. The theatrical release, yeah, you if you follow the link below and watch one of the re-edited, fan edited versions, or the one that I have linked below, and you watch it, then you go and you watch the theatrical cut, and you'll understand that the film studio butchered what could have been a masterpiece. It was butchered for time, because movies in the 80s, a 2-hour movie was considered a long movie. And this is right at 3 hours. The uncut version, or the un-studio interfered version, is right about 3 hours. And in 1984, that would have been unheard of as a movie. And the studio didn't want to risk doing it in 2 parts and having the first part bomb and have the second part on their hands that they didn't know what to do with. So they just butchered it like a lamb to the slaughter and released it, and it bombed. You know, I think the movie, in my opinion, would have been better if they would have released it as a 3-hour movie or 2 parts, in my opinion. But that's a 54-year-old man looking back through time and thinking about a 14-year-old kid watching movies. So yeah, it's one of those things we need to, and I think even if you don't like it, even if you prefer the novel over any of the film, if you prefer, the new one versus the other two, or the 2000 and 2003 over the others, each one is a piece, it's the groundwork for the next one. And like I said, this movie is, or the novel I should say, is just dense with lore and histories and build-ups and stuff like that. When I get into the more the book versus the film interpretations, the reason why I use the word interpretation is because I have a lot of trouble pronouncing adaptation correctly, as you just witnessed, so I use interpretation because it's easier for me to say. However, I hope you all out there like it. I hope you enjoyed it. And I recommend reading the book and watching all the translations and all the interpretations into film. And until next time, peace.
Hey, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?